And after 3 days, she had some restlessness at home. Again, she showed it to my son. He said કે મેં ઉપર આવું થાય છે બેચેની લાગે છે તો અહીંયા ઓબ્ઝર્વેશન મારો. So she was asked for the observation. Blood investigation, everything were normal. ECG was normal. But next morning, I received a call from my staff. That staff said that lady has become drowsy. Somewhere around 6:30 a.m. मैंने कहा कि pulse oximeter શું કહેવાય? That is, the oxygen is 88 and pulse rate is 30. I said, at least take ECG. By the time I went there, I saw the ECG shows junction bradycardia, and the lady was in low volume output.
Pacemakers, this lecture will be divided in two parts. First part is temporary pacemaker, second part is permanent pacemaker. Whenever possible, we'll discuss about some ECGs and we'll discuss about this pacemaker also, temporary pacemaker. So pacemaker are the electronic device that can be used to initiate heartbeat when the heart's intrinsic electrical system cannot effectively generate a rate which is adequate to support cardiac output. So this is the first part where your patient had heart rate of 30 and at heart rate of 30 cardiac for 3 hours, and this patient used nearly 23 pulse generator and 5 electrode system over a period of his life, and he died at the age of 86 in 2001 due to carcinoma, not due to heart failure. First atrial triggered pacemaker. So that first pacemaker was ventricular pacemaker. First atrial triggered pacemaker was implanted in 1960. 1964 first demand pacemaker was implanted. This will see which are terminologies: demand pacemaker, what is asynchronous pacemaker. That also we'll see in a couple of slides. First atrial and ventricular demand pacing, that is DDD, which is now what we are doing, was started in 1977. 1980 for successful pacemaker intervention for supraventricular tachycardia was done. So let's cut short the history. There are two types of pacemaker. One is temporary pacemaker, one is permanent pacemaker. In temporary pacemaker, again there are two types. Transcutaneous, that is we can do it with the application of pads. What defibrillator we are using, some of the defibrillator does a pacemaker function. So you apply defibrillator pads, you can pace the patient's heart for a time being through transcutaneous route, but which is very cumbersome, very painful to patient. Patient has to be sedated for that, or at least conscious sedation has to be given to patient.
How long we can?
Temporary, till the time you can apply transvenous pacing. Maybe temporary in the sense like patient came in heart block, 30 heart rate, cardiac output is low. Meanwhile, cardiologist is available, transvenous pacemaker can be applied. But it is very painful. I had applied only once or twice in this practice. It is very painful. Then transvenous pacing, that we all know. Permanent pacemaker, again there are two types. First is epicardial pacing, one is endocardial pacing. What PPM we are applying, that is endocardial pacing through subclavian route. Epicardial pacemaker generally surgeons use during bypass or during aortic valve replacement. They apply electrodes to the outside of the heart, that is epicardium of the heart, and they keep the wire out from the skin, from the crematorium. That can be used temporarily in post-surgical or post-AVR time. So let's go to first part, temporary pacemaker. It can be used temporarily either supportively or prophylactically until the condition responsible for rate or conduction disturbance resolves, or permanent pacemaker is implanted. Indication for this would be bradyarrhythmias. Now, if we start bradyarrhythmias from SNO, first is 6 sinus syndrome or sinus node dysfunction, then AV nodal block. May it be second degree Vancomycin, may it be second degree type 2, or may it be complete AV block. Then sinus arrest and junction. That's what your patient had. Another indication is permanent pacemaker failure, like any patient with pacemaker present was with C. Transvenous pacing system and multiple sites. Temporary pacemaker we are not talking about permanent. First and common, if you are not doing in your cath lab, it is best to go ahead with either jugular or subclavian, because it is obvious that from jugular route definitely the pathway will go towards right ventricle, while if you are applying transvenous pacing through femoral root without the help of catheter or without the help of CR, then it has multiple routes too. It can go to renal vein, it can go to hepatic vein, it can go to opposite side of the leg vessels, it can go to anywhere. There multiple attempts has to be required. So best route without catheter or without CR is internal jugular or subclavian vein. Other route would be femoral vein. Very rarely brachial vein can also be tried if other routes are not possible. And very rarely some articles are there which says that external jugular vein can be tried. We have not yet tried. And system consists of, this is pulse generator and pacing lead will go from here inside the patient. So if you look at this pulse generator, there are three knobs: rate, output and sensitivity. We will discuss everything one by one. Rate, obviously, rate means heart rate. So this is also another kind of pacemaker. Here also it is same, rate, output and sensitivity. Here there are two outputs, one is atrial output, ventricular output, because this can pace both the chambers at a time. And this is generally used in epicardial pacing post surgery, where atrial wire is also there, ventricular wire is also there. This is very commonly used method. So rate is obviously heart rate. Generally heart rate requirement is between 60 to 80. Depending on your patient's requirement, it can be increased or it can be decreased. Then output. Output is the amount of current which is delivered to the lead and which is ultimately delivered to the patient's ventricle. Now there is one terminology called threshold. What is threshold? Threshold is minimum amount of output or minimum amount of electricity required to pace patient's heart. Like we applied pacemaker, we inserted the lead. We tried starting from the 10 output, 10 milliampere. Then we go to 7. It is like in patient with junctional rhythm or in patient with 2:1 AV block or in patient with Wenke. Some beats are getting conducted from atria to ventricle by itself, except complete heart block patients. So in that case, we set these parameters of sensitivity at the rate like say 0.5. So any cardiac activity, inherent cardiac activity which has current of 0.5 millivolt will not be paced. That will be sensed. Pacemaker will sense that there is an inherent cardiac activity. Pacemaker will inhibit itself. Pacemaker will not pace for that beat, particular beat. There is one more function over here, asynchronous mode. This also we will discuss, but asynchronous mode means pacemaker will not sense anything. Pacemaker will continue pacing at the rate whatever you have set. Say if you have set at 80, forget patient's rate, pacemaker will pace at 80. Even if patient rate goes beyond 80, pacemaker will try to pace it. So that is asynchronous mode. Very rarely it is required. So rate is the number of impulse that can be delivered to heart per minute. Generally is kept between 60 to 80, but depending on physiological rate it can vary. Output is the amount of electrical current that is delivered to the heart to initiate depolarization. And the point at which depolarization occurs is termed threshold and is indicated by myocardial response to pacing stimulus. That is, in permanent pacemaker, this terminology is called capture. Sensitivity is control, regulate the ability of pacemaker to sense heart's intrinsic electric activity, and it is measured in millivolt. This is pacing lead. There are two kinds of pacing lead. It can be unipolar or bipolar. There will be only one pacing lead, but this is bipolar where there is one negative electrode and one positive electrode. And this is a pacing lead versus this unipolar lead, only single and negative electrode, and there is a lead. Pulse generator here works as a positive lead. There are no added advantages of unipolar versus bipolar.
So, apart from defibrillator, are there any other temporary pace, wireless temporary pace? Okay. Like in a wireless mouse,
No.
It has you just put and
Yes. It's all wired temporary.
ultimately you have to invert the system
Yes.
to put the lead.
Yes. So first type of pacing with this is fixed rate or asynchronous pacing. For this mode, you have to set this node to the asynchronous part, and it delivers a pacing stimulus at a set fixed rate, regardless of the occurrence of spontaneous myocardial depolarization. And it occurs in non-sensing mode because asynchronous means sensitivity is out. It delivers electrical impulse at a present fixed rate to the heart and function independently of the cardiac activity. Many times we may require this. Demand pacing. Here comes the role of sensitivity. The pulse generator delivers artificial stimulus only when needed or on demand, and it does not compete with patient's rhythm. Say patient is in temporary heart failure because of some hyperkalemia, and you implanted pacemaker. Once hyperkalemia corrects, patient's intrinsic depolarization will start. That time, if you set sensitivity of 0.25 or 0.5, and once patient's electrical activity goes beyond that particular millivolt level, then pacemaker will go into only sensing mode, and it will allow patient's intrinsic heartbeat to occur. This is a good function actually. This is required, and most of time we set pacemaker on this function.
Where do you set asynchronous?
Very rarely, when there is no P wave, when there is atrial fibrillation, then we require generally asynchronous mode. Because what happens with atrial fibrillation, multiple stimuli will come from the atria to the ventricle. Sometimes some of that stimuli will be more than 0.25, which will be sensed and it won't be paced. So that time, in case of atrial fibrillation, when you are going for ventricular pacing, that time asynchronous mode is helpful. Other cases won't be helpful. Second case where it would be helpful would be inferior MI, CHP, low cardiac output, and you require to pace heart at 100 to deliver cardiac output. That time it will be required, but that time it will be for temporary period. Till the time you revascularize the vessel, then only. So these are two scenarios where you require asynchronous pacing. Third would be when you are at home in night and suddenly somebody calls that pacemaker is not pacing. So that time you increase the heart rate to 100, go out to 10 or more than 10 and go to asynchronous mode. If it is pacing on asynchronous mode, there is something wrong with either patient's rhythm or something wrong with the system. If it does not pace on its asynchronous mode also, the lead has disturbed. Then you need to reposition. So that time just to look whether problem is with the pacemaker, problem is with the lead or some other problem, that time asynchronous mode can be tried. Then there is sequential pacing, dual chamber pacing. Generally, transvenous pacing are only single chamber pacing. Until unless you have two transvenous routes and you have done pacing to both atria and ventricle. Otherwise, epicardial pacing post surgery is sequential pacing, and it delivers pacing stimulus to both atrium and ventricle in physiological sequence with sufficient AV delay to permit adequate ventricular filling. Because when atria will contract, then only ventricular filling will occur. So there has to be some time between atrial contraction and ventricular depolarization to allow adequate ventricular filling. What is pacing spike? Now pacing spike is a spike which is seen on surface ECG and it denotes stimulus delivered to the heart. Here the difference is what we have discussed, unipolar and bipolar lead. Unipolar lead generally will have a higher pacing spike or tall pacing spike. Bipolar lead will have a short or small pacing spike. And P over QRS, whichever chamber is being paced, after pacing spike there has to be chamber depolarization. So if atria is being paced, after pacing there has to be P wave. If ventricle is being paced after pacing there has to be QRS. And there won't be any delay between the pacing spike and QRS until set otherwise. So these are pacing spikes. Like this. After pacing spike, immediately there is P wave, and after pacing spike, immediately there is QRS complex. This is A paced, B paced. Now what is happening over here?
Paced V cells. A paced V cells.
What is happening in this group?
Is
Here there is no
is
pacing
sinus
spike.
lead.
So this is native P wave. QRS is already started. After QRS, on top of QRS there is a pacing spike. So this is malfunction. This is not pacing spike. Pacing spike has to come before the start of QRS. Here again, there is malfunction. Again there is malfunction. Again. So there is some malfunction. Even if you look at this P wave pacing spike, spike is also before P wave, on the P wave, again before P wave, again on the P wave. So both malfunctions are going on. This permanent pacemaker or this temporary pacemaker, whatever it may be, it requires some corrective measures. And this is risky. If your pacing spike which is coming on the QRS, it goes over the T wave, then a spike is delivered over T wave, can degenerate into torsades or V wave.
R or P.
R or P wave. So troubleshooting. Now again complex terminology will start. First is failure to capture. Failure to capture is this is pacing spike. Immediately post pacing spike there is QRS, pacing spike QRS, pacing spike no ventricular activity. This is failure to capture. Pacing spike without any chamber activity after pacing spike. So this pacing or this stimulus has not been delivered to heart. Causes would be multiple. Starting from the lead, either lead is dislodged. Here it is not dislodged totally. Maybe it is moving inside the heart, and that's why this pacing spike is not delivered to the ventricle. So lead dislodgement is the first common cause. In case of transvenous temporary pacing, make the patient into left lateral position with gravity. The lead will fall down again on RV. It can work, but very rarely it doesn't work as such. But yes, book says it may work. Loose connection. Either connection of lead with pacemaker is loose, or connection to the inside the patient is loose, that is lead dislodged. So at any point, loose connection of pacing lead with pacemaker. Lead wire fracture. In that case, corrective measure is replacement of wire. Inadequate amount of energy is delivered. That's what I said in case of emergency. If your patient is not being paced, increase output to maximum, go 10 or beyond that. So that could be one of the reasons why it is not being captured. And why you require increased amount of energy? Say in case of inferior MI, you implanted a pacemaker and it is not being paced. It is possible that inferior wall of the heart is scarred or inferior wall of heart is infarcted, and that's why the amount of current required is higher to adequately depolarize the part. Then there is one more possibility: failure of pacemaker battery or failure of generator. Very rarely electrolyte imbalance or say hypercapnia. So these are common causes of failure to capture, and this is the commonest problem which will occur.
How we fix the leads on endocardium with stage or something else?
Stage. No, endocardium it is only a lead is endocardium. This we are talking about temporary pacing only. Permanent health come in second time. Then we'll discuss how to fix it.
So permanent, temporary pacemaker leads are just touching endocardium.
Yes.
Just touching.
Just touching it, it will stay there because RV is rough wall. LV is smooth part. RV is rough wall. There are multiple papillary muscles, multiple other muscles are also there, so it will get fixed. One more system is the tip is balloon inflated, so that balloon can also give you some support. Balloon can also trap that muscular part or trabecular part, and so that it will not move from there.
How big that balloon is?
Small.
Size.
2 ml. 2 ml, or you can just insert 2 ml of air in there. Yeah, so what is happening over here? Anyone from that side? Jenny लोग लाल 20 जन से चलो मारो पार्ट पति भी आते
So first rhythm
A
still
pace.
looks fine.
Yeah. First is A pace, B pace. After pacing spike there is P wave, and after ventricular pacing there is QRS.
Oh, so this is all fine.
Yes.
What is this?
There is a delay between ventricular pacing and
It
QRS.
is oversensing.
We are not talking about oversensing, undersensing as of now. We have just learned about capture. Other terminology we will discuss. So this is P wave, which is being paced. Then there is a spike, but there is no ventricular activity. There is a significant pause, and this is again ventricular activity, which looks like intrinsic.
Failure to
Inadequate
capture.
output, or this is failure to capture because this is not being transmitted to the ventricle. Same, P wave paced, QR is not transmitted. P paced, there is no spike at all here. Or if at all, there is maybe very small rough spike is there, very faint. But QRS remains small. P wave, QRS remains small. P wave. So P wave is being paced. So atria is being captured. Ventricle capture failure is there. So there is loss of ventricular capture. Then we come to sense. Now there are two problems. One is undersensing, one is oversensing. What is undersensing? Undersensing, pacemaker does not see the intrinsic beat and therefore it does not respond appropriately. Like if you set sense mode at 0.5 millimeter, if pacemaker goes in undersensing mode, it won't sense anything and it will continue pacing everything because it is not sensing. So undersensing will lead to overpacing, vice versa. Oversensing. Now we will discuss what are the causes of oversensing, but one commonest cause in temporary pacemaker is shivering. Shivering and skeletal muscular contraction. This skeletal muscle contraction sometimes is sensed as a cardiac activity, and that pacemaker is oversense the activity of skeletal muscle and it won't pace it. So oversensing will lead to underpacing. Keep it simple. Causes. Causes of undersensing. Now our pacemaker is connected to heart at particular point. Suppose that point is infarcted, or suppose that point is a edema because of myocarditis. So that part does not receive adequate amount of electrical current. So pacemaker is not going to sense it because the current is not being reached over there. So first cause is tissue ischemia or ischemic heart disease and myocardial edema or myocardial fibrosis. Another cause is electrolyte imbalance because of hyperkalemia. Myocardium will go into low responsive state and it won't get adequate amount of native depolarization, so that pacemaker is also going to undersense. And poorly positioned lead. If your lead contact with myocardium is not adequate, it will go into undersensing. Oversensing, there are very few causes. One is we discussed shivering. Second is electromagnetic interference with either MRI or magnetic doors or very old model of microwaves, or very rarely sometimes old fashioned cell phones also. So these are the causes of oversensing. But out of this, old model of microwaves are not in use. During MRI we generally change the pacemaker mode, and nowadays cell phone does not interfere with this pacemaker functions. So this part is out. Only cause of oversensing is shivering or very rarely atrial flutter fibrillation. Third problem with pacemaker is failure to pace. Everything is okay, still pacemaker does not pace. Like in this case, QRS is being paced, QRS is being paced, QRS is being paced. But between these two beats are being paced. So your rate set has been at this interval, but there is no pacing spike over here. Why? Because this pacing spike is not delivered. There is failure to pace by pacemaker. Pacemaker is not delivered anything, nothing wrong with the heart. Capture is being done, sensitivity is also okay, but this part is not being paced. Why? The common cause is loose connection between lead, wire, cable and pacemaker. Anywhere loose connection with either with the myocardium or either with this pulse generator. Fracture of lead, failure of battery, failure of pulse generator, or oversensing. So these are the common cause of failure to pace. Let's quickly discuss about permanent pacemaker. I won't take any more time in this. There are two kinds of pacemaker we have discussed: epicardial pacing, endocardial pacing. Endocardial pacing can be done via subclavian or via axillary vein. Both are very near. If you go intrathoracic part, that is subclavian vein. Extrathoracic part is axillary vein. Extrathoracic is more safer for patients because it does not lead to this pleural space involvement and it does not lead to complications. So this is a pulse generator which is implanted subcutaneously. From here, two wires will go either to axillary vein or subclavian vein, and from there via internal jugular vein (SVC) it will go to heart. This is a single chamber, and this is a dual chamber pacemaker, which will lead to the right atrium and lead to right ventricle pulse. Let's not go into this detail, but there are four parts of this pacemaker. First is pulse generator, then there are leads, Then there is cathode and there is anode. So that is a negative pole and there is a positive pole. This is not important. So there are two kinds of pacing. One is single chamber pacing.
How that leads are placed, they are stitched.
Yeah, so they are not
Permanent
stitched.
one.
There is a screw over here. There are two systems. One is screw and second is tine. Tine is like a flange basically. So flange will open and it will get stuck inside the papillary or it will get stuck inside the corrugated rough part of the artery and then it will remain there. Second part is screw. Screw will go inside the endocardium to myocardium. And that screw part is more better. Screw fixed leads are very less prone for dislodgement. Tine leads are also very less prone, but in case of right atrium, it is least chance of getting dislodged. So generally we use right atrial lead as a tine lead. Ventricle we generally do prefer as a screw-in lead only. So these are two systems to fix it over there. And screw we can manipulate from this part. From here to the screw, there is a wire going on. So you just apply screw from this part. The screw will come out and it will go into myocardium. This we can see on fluoroscope.
That screw will not cause any ventricular.
It will cause. It will cause some small myocardial infarct in that part. And that is a way to check. So after implanting a lead, once you apply the screw, there is a current of injury. So there is definitely some current of injury will be there. But that's a very small tiny screw. So it is not
That
going
will
to.
lead to VTI also.
No, never.
So what material is that screw?
Titanium. So pacing, there are two pacing, single chamber pacing, dual chamber pacing.
So will it
Dual-
affect in MRI again?
Yes. So with pacemaker, MRI post pacemaker up to 3 weeks it is not recommended after implanting a permanent pacemaker. Then there are two kind of pacemaker. One is MRI non-compatible, partial MRI compatible and full MRI compatible. But there is nothing like non-MRI compatible. All pacemakers are partial MRI compatible except older model which was implanted 10 years back. So nowadays model which is available is all models are partial MRI compatible. Partial means up to 1.5 Tesla you can go for it. But after 3 weeks.
Why
Not before.
3 weeks? What is
3 weeks because that lead part, that screw part is not yet infarcted properly. So there is no fibrosis. So lead can dislodge in a 3 weeks time. After 3 weeks the healing process has occurred. So there is very rare chances of getting dislodged because of that MRI interference. And before MRI, everywhere, you have to call the pacemaker technician, change the mode to VVI mode and then go for MRI. Or before any surgery, before cautery also you can go to MRI. Before cautery you have to call the technician and go to VVI mode.
कोई 3 weeks पहले जरूर पड़ी था उसको
Problem. Very risky.
very
This law
3 weeks
and
is
we have to-
bookish
बताया
recommended.
dislodge થઈ જાય
Yes. 3 weeks is bookish recommended. Still, very rare cases are there where MRI has been done after 48 hours. Before 48 hours, nobody is done.
What about CT?
CT scan can be done. No harm. CT scan anytime can be done. And full MRI compatible pacemaker means you can do any MRI beyond 1.5 Tesla up to 3.5 Tesla also.
તમે પાછું એવું છે જ નહીં
So what is
Full
the,
MRI compatible is there. There is nothing like
Compatible
non-MRI.
નથી એવું નથી.
what is the difference in the pacemaker?
Yeah, it is in pacemaker. Yeah, because pacemaker does a multiple batteries, there is a sensing mode, there is a clock also. So some part of being made of stainless steel, some is titanium, some is metal also. So that's why it's not all are partial MRI compatible compulsory. Full MRI compatible is costly. So if you talk about cost, partial MRI compatible goes somewhere around 2.5. Full can go up to 4.5 also. So that is significant difference. Yeah, so advantage of dual chamber pacing is it provides asynchrony. That in some case we already discussed about pacemaker syndrome that will lead to heart failure post single chamber implantation. Then there is lower risk of embolic risk and stroke, low incidence of congestive cardiac failure that is pacemaker syndrome and low mortality and high survival rate. There are few articles also that in case of dual chamber pacemaker atrial fibrillation occurrence is also less. There are few articles. Now this is NBG coding. What we say DDD, VPI, that is this NBG coding. NBG is North American Electrophysiology and Pacing Society. British Electrophysiology and Pacing Society code. So that is, two society has given this code. So this is basically terminology. The first letter denotes which chamber is being paced. So in case of VVI, ventricle is being paced. In case of DDD, both chambers are being paced. In case of AAI, atrium is being paced. Second is chamber being sensed. DDD, both chambers are being sensed. VVI, only ventricle is being sensed. VDD mode, again ventricle is paced, both chambers are sensed. Then response to sensing. Suppose pacemaker is sensed, there is a activity. So what it will do? Either it will trigger after sensing atrium activity, it will trigger ventricular contraction. So that is denoted by T. Generally, this mode is not used. Only either inhibited or dual mode is used, like VVA. Ventricle based, ventricle sensed. If ventricle activity is there, it can be inhibited. That is VVA. DDD, both chambers are based, both chambers can be sensed, and dual mode. If atrium sensed, atrial pole will not be fired, it will go into sensing mode. If ventricle sensed, ventricle lead will not fire, it will go into sensing mode. Then this is all fancy and newer parameters. P is simple, not used. M is multi-programmable. R is rate adaptive, which is very commonly used. Why rate adaptive is requirement? Suppose your patient whose heart rate requirement is around 80 and you set pacemaker at 80. Once that patient will start walking or running, the demand of body will increase. So heart rate has to go from 80 to 100. So how it will be sensed? It will be sensed by pacemaker with change in the movement, body movement, change in the QT period interval, and that pacemaker will sense that patient is exercising. It requires more heart rate. Pacemaker rate automatically will increase from 80 to 90 or 100, whatever is required. That is rate responsiveness or rate adaptiveness. That is common function being used now. And then there is anti-tachycardia features which requires very rarely in case of ICDs. These are not for pacemaker. These are for ICDs and CRDs. So let's first discuss about pacing mode. So what is this pacing mode? What is the rate over here? Then
rate is pacing 30.
and is also starts off in the
Speed is 50 millimeter per second. C is of speed.
Speed double.
Speed is 50%. So speed is double.
20
So you have to look on everywhere on the script. Speed is 50. So
60.
this two box will be one box now.
Yes.
This is 300, 150, 100, 75, 60 and 50. So rate is around 50. This is the programmed rate. Pacing spike, ventricle captured, pacing spike captured. What is this? Possibly VPC.
VPC.
Because which has come
Earlier.
earlier, and it is also bizarre. The morphology is also different. This is a VPC. There are no P wave spike. There are no P waves at all. So probably underlying rhythm is atrial fibrillation. That's why there are no P waves. P wave spikes are also not there. Atrial spikes are also not there. So probably this was VVI kind of pacemaker. Then this one. These are all pacing spikes. But if you look at the difference between this distance between this two pacing spike versus distance between this two, this is more, this is less. Why? Because maybe patient is exercising or maybe the requirement is increasing. That's why pacing spikes are coming early. So this is rate responsiveness. This is VVIR. Then what's happening over here? Lalji. This is spike followed by QR. So ventricle is being paced. What is happening over here? Native P
They are
wave.
being sensed.
Yeah, native P wave possibility sensed. Native QRS again sensed. From there, pacemaker will reset. Program rate is around 50, so it will reset after the adequate period of waiting. If native QRS is not there, it will again give a pacing spike. So that is again VVIR. This part, the pacing spike is inhibited because of sensing of intrinsic depolarizer. This is again AI mode. Atrial spike followed by P, native QRS, atrial spike, P, native QRS, native P wave, no spikes, which has come slightly earlier as compared to this wait period. So again, this is AI mode. Atrial based, atrial sensed, and once atrial is sensed, it is inhibited. P wave, spike, P wave, QRS, spike, P wave, QRS. The rate is changing over here. Why? Because it is rate responsiveness. So this is also important. Where you implant which type of pacemaker. For sinus node dysfunctions and AV node is normal, the pacemaker which is required is AI. But in general, when there is sinus node dysfunction, elderly patients, some AV node dysfunction will be there. So DDD would be another option in this case. AV node dysfunction or AV blockage, always DDD. Alternate cost issues, cost constraint, VVI can be implanted. But again, there are all lot of problem with single chamber system. Sinus node dysfunction plus AV block, definitely DDD. DDDR or DDIR, whatever, can be changed. Chronic AF with AV block. Chronic AF atrium is not going to be based, here VVI is sufficient. Because even if you apply any n amount of stimulus to the atrium, it is not going to capture because the atrial fibrillation is always there. So it is going to be in sensing mode permanently. It will keep on sensing, it will keep on depleting the battery. Why to deplete battery? VVI is enough. Until you go for some surgery for atrial fibrillation and going for DDD, that is sensible. Now, what's happening over here? Chala, pati ki bache. Chala, ek jana analysis start kar zero hai. What is this?
Normal QRS.
This is a pacing spike. This is not normal QRS. This is pacing spike. Followed by this is tiny P wave. Look at here. This is pacing spike. Followed by tiny P wave. Followed by again pacing spike.
First one doesn't look like a pacing spike.
This doesn't look like, but
First one,
maybe
first.
because first one, yeah, this one.
Yes.
But this is pacing spike. This want to be P wave, and none of the cardiac activity will be like this. So believe it as a pacing spike. So A paced, B paced, no malfunctions, it is functioning proper.
The spacing spikes height is different. Does that mean anything?
No, this is the smaller size. So again, I will say that this is a bipolar. Yeah.
The second meter lower.
No, it's okay. It can change.
Now,
This
please
is
confirm
what
that
I
data,
talk
Ronak.
about unipolar lines.
That to page से प्रमाण नहीं लगता. Last lead confirm कर देगा. It looks little different than you described. All spacing height cannot be this much different. And
All
spacing
spacing
height
cannot be this
ma
much different.
it will be a single.
Yes.
But
But some minor changes will be there. If you look at this spacing spike versus this spacing spike, the height is definitely different. Agree. Even this is height is different versus this. But these are spacing
Yeah,
spikes.
but it is little. You discuss this form.
Okay.
Let us know what
Sure.
it is.
This. So these are unipolar leads. The spike is really tall. So this kind of spikes are seen in unipolar leads, which is not commonly being used now. That's why we see small tiny spikes only. So this P wave is being paced. So this is atrial pacing. Everywhere P wave spikes are there before P wave, and then there is a native QRS. So this is atrial pacing.
So why there are no spikes in lead? Only one spike.
So sometimes because of this change in the orientation of leads, some leads may not show the spacing spike. That also I show one ECG where pacing spike is seen only in V1, V2, V3. Except everywhere it's not seen at all. That also I'll show. Baki badda. But it is possible depending on the alignment of lead, depending on the alignment of heart, it can vary. What about this? Any comments on native activity? What would be the problem?
AT atrial fibrillation.
Atrial fibrillation.
Yes, either there is atrial fibrillation flutter, there are multiple POs are being seen.
Yes.
So this is only VVI kind of pacemaker. Atrial lead is not implanted because it is not required in case of A for atrial flutter. Then this all ventricle activity is being fixed. What about this? This is again same.
This is A pace, B pace.
Dual chamber.
Dual
Yeah.
chamber.
Essentially,
A pace.
What about this?
Wow.
Also to complex.
A
Describe this long lead only. પછી આ જોશું. What is this?
B pace, B
Ventricle base.
pace.
Pacing spike, ventricle base. Again pacing spike, ventricle base. What is this?
Failure to sense. मतलब
No, possibly this is a native QRS.
unneeded.
Possibly this is native QRS. So this has come definitely, if you calculate this distance, this has come definitely early. This is possibly a native QRS. What about this? There is a pacing spike. After pacing spike, there is ventricular activity. So some amount of pacing has been done. But if you look at this QRS and this QRS morphology, it's different.
So
It is somewhere in between these two QRSs. This is narrow, this is broad. This is neither narrow, neither broad. It is somewhere in between. So this is fusion. So this is pace. Intrinsic activity is also there. This is the fusion view. Again here also this is fusion. Pace, 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 pace. Again native, pace. So some ventricular activity, native ventricular activity is also going on. Now what about atrial activity? Atrial activity best seen in lead 2 and lead V1. So first look at V1. There are multiple small tiny videos are there. So probably here also there is atrial flutter. And this pacemaker is only ventricle based pacemaker, probably VVIR mode, and this native QRS, the ventricle is being inhibited, and then these are fusion. So this is the capture bit, this is fusion. Any native bit coming in between pace bit is capture, any fused bit somewhere in between the neither broad nor narrow QRS is a fusion bit. Complications of pacemaker, this is the last part. Maybe 2-3
You
slides.
don't have any oversensing or undersensing leads.
Oversensing easily nothing oversenses. So complication of temporary pacemaker is common as is displacement.
API
Temporary pacemaker.
temporary pace I
Implantation.
Implantation.
Then another common complication bleeding at the insertion site, that is femoral or jugular. Pericardial tamponade because of puncture of the heart wall with temporary pacemaker lead. Thrombophlebitis at the insertion site. Very rarely pulmonary embolism because it is again artificial lead. Air embolism because whatever balloon here inflating inside the heart, if it get ruptured, there is very rare possibility of getting air embolism. And then very rare catheter will get not inside the IVC. Complication of permanent pacemaker is various arrhythmias including VT, VF because of RMT phenomena, electrical hazards such as inadvertent induction of EF, pneumothorax, subdiaphragmatic stimulation, infection and perforation. These are common complications during implantation or due to techniques. This complication occurs because generally of single chamber pacemaker. When only ventricle is being paced, atrium is not being paced, there is competition between atria and ventricle, patient will go into heart failure, develop severe MR, this kind of picture may occur. When to avoid pacing, when not to do pacing. Risk outweighs benefit. Any procedure in medical, if risk outweighs benefit, pacemaker is to be avoided. Intermittent mild or rare symptoms and bradycardia is well tolerated, then pacemaker should be avoided. It includes asymptomatic heart block also. So sometimes you may get a patient, young patient, 20 years, with congenital heart block, absolutely asymptomatic. Pacemaker can be avoided. Patient can be kept under observation.
So do you need to do exercise testing in those cases?
Yes, possibly. If possible, yes. If it is narrow QRS, you can still avoid exercise testing also. If narrow QRS, yes, you can still avoid. So this is same. Adequate escape rhythm, stable escape rhythm. Narrow QRS are generally stable escape rhythms. Asymptomatic sick sinus also, with only rare pauses on halter, can avoid pacing. Presence of prosthetic tricuspid valve or RV infarct should avoid pacing. So it won't work. And prosthetic tricuspid valve, it won't go inside. These are special in situations where you require magnetic release. Now, when you apply magnet to pacemaker, pacemaker is not going to shut down. Any pacemaker, DDD or whatever it may be, it will go to asynchronous. So, in case of DDD, it will go to VVI mode, VVO mode actually. So, it will pace ventricle only. Like in this case, there was tachycardia, there was a malfunction, magnet was applied, and then there is only pacing spike at the set intrinsic rate. When it is required, end of battery life or end of battery life or end of pacemaker life, but it does not switch off the pacemaker. Many times patient will have a question, what will happen if I go to airport and they apply magnet? Pacemaker is not going to shut down. Pacemaker will go just to VO mode temporarily. It will again come back to DDD mode.
So where do you apply the magnet?
On pacemaker.
On patient.
Yes, on pacemaker.
Do you apply
Pulse
or something
generator.
will come in?
No, even we can apply, but this much has to be the size of magnet. It won't be like small one. This much has to be the magnet size. So when in case of emergency, if you want to go for surgery and company guy is not available, you can go to magnet during surgery. So that is same as VO. Then electromagnetic interference, what we have discussed. What about this ECG? This is one of the complications of pacemaker. There are multiple differential diagnoses for this. So if you look at here first, there is a small pacing spike of P wave followed by QRS, and then there are no P waves at all QRS at the rate of nearly 130 to 140 beat per minute. Now pacemaker is never set at 130 and 140. It's generally set at 60, 70, 80, 90 or very rarely 100. But this is even more than 100, 130, 140. So either this is on exercise treadmill days, patient is exercising and rate is increasing with that exercise, or there is pacemaker mediated tachycardia. What happens in pacemaker mediated tachycardia? Ventricle is stimulated, ventricle depolarizes. That depolarization wave will transmit back to atria. Atrium lead will sense that ventricle depolarization, and it will tell ventricle lead again to pace. So this chronic vicious cycle will go on. This is like a SVT basically. Pacemaker induced tachycardia is PMT. What is this? This is not very rarely, very rarely. This is not artifact. This is end of life, where pacemaker will generate multiple small stimuli. That is end of life mode. And this is very rarely seen. This was very old ECG when pacemakers are not being checked frequently. So there this time will happen. This kind of thing will happen. So these are small, tiny spacing spike delivered by the pacemaker, followed by one QRS. Again tiny spike, QRS, big spike, again small tiny spike. So in that case also, apply magnet, pacemaker will go into VO mode till the time temporary pacemaker is implanted or another permanent pacemaker is implanted, patient can be kept on magnet.
तो दिया बुझने से पहले फड़फड़ा रहा है.
Yes. Last ECG. What is this?
Ventricular spike luggage.
See, this was I was talking about. Here there is spike. Here there is spike.
Yes.
Other lead does not show spike. Even if you compare this with lead 2, there is no spike over here. There is no spike over here. So sometimes this may happen.
Complete heart block process.
Yeah. So patient had inherently underlying complete heart block. These are all paced beats. If you look at this lead V3, from here the lead V3 has started. This is a spike. So this is a spike somewhere after the P wave, but there is no QRS. So there is failure to capture of ventricular lead over here. There is a P wave, spike, QRS, P wave, spike, QRS. Again these P waves are not being transmitted. So there is failure to capture of ventricular leads, and There are only V spikes are there, so either P wave is not being paced or this is only VVI mode of pacemaker, only ventricular lead and failure to capture of ventricular activity. So this was